Welcome to the Deep Dive Books channel, where we hope you find something valuable every day.
This video is about the questions from several friends regarding the interpretation of Scott Adams's Reframe Your Brain. Below are our responses, for reference only. Question 1. Hello, Adams suggests, finding a job where you can control your own schedule. That's interesting. Writers and college students often have free time, but the reality is that they can easily become accustomed to this freedom, fall into a comfort zone, and end up procrastinating and making slow progress. Do you think there are other conditions or methods to ensure that such freelancers remain efficient and make progress? Also, I'm curious, is your daily work schedule free or fixed? Response. The key to energy management is ensuring that your highest energy levels are used for uninterrupted, long periods of time. Whether you go to a cafe, a library, or work at home or in an office, this time must be entirely your own. My personal experience might not be universally applicable because I've been very fortunate. From my first day to my last, whether at university or in research institutes, I always had a private office. I could do whatever I wanted, and even my supervisors had to schedule appointments to meet with me. Most people don't have this kind of setup. For the average office worker, managing a secret project means working outside of the 8-hour workday. Considering that after work, you still need to take care of family and social activities, you only have two choices. Stay up late or get up early. If you follow health guidelines and sleep from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., you won't have any freedom. Scott Adams is an early riser. Whether he worked in a company or is now freelancing, he gets up at 4 a.m. and starts working immediately. This is his most creative time of the day. He works for 3 to 4 hours straight, then has breakfast around 7 or 8 a.m., takes a shower, and then goes to work. I envy early risers because this routine makes you feel great. The more you work, the brighter the day gets, full of hope. And when others haven't started working yet, you've already completed the most important tasks of the day. I, however, am accustomed to staying up late. My golden work hours are from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m., and even when I used to work a regular job, I rarely went to bed before 1 a.m. For days a week, I need to get up at 7:30 a.m. to take my child to school, so I need to nap during the day. On other days, I can sleep in. If you want more freedom, you need to master the art of taking breaks, ideally entering a power-saving mode like a phone. There was a time when I took the bus to work every day, and I could fall asleep as soon as I got on, waking up just before my stop. Not working a regular job indeed provides a lot of freedom, but this freedom can easily lead to slackness. For this type of freelance work, my own experience, as well as what I've heard from others, is that deadlines are the best time management tool. If you must submit your work by 6 p.m. today, you don't need any other time management tools. So, as long as I'm updating my channel regularly, I don't have time management issues. Interestingly, self-imposed deadlines are ineffective. For example, during breaks from my channel, I plan to write several articles, but I never complete them. In the moment, I negotiate with myself, and it's easy to say, let's skip today. This demonstrates the importance of what Adams calls the system. The biggest lesson I've learned from Adams is to respect your system. Even if you're not in the best shape to work out, you still need to go to the gym to show respect for your system. There's no negotiating. I haven't fully achieved this. But I think, since I produce so much content regularly, can't I slack off a bit during holidays? Question 2. Hello. Because heuristic seems to leverage the fact that most people are in an autopilot mode most of the time. If the matter has some degree of personal interest or if more people become aware and conscious, wouldn't the because heuristic become less effective? Response. You are right. When we talk about the fake because tactic, it's to highlight that people's compliance is often higher than we imagine. And we're discussing the social domain here. In social interactions, you often need to overcome shyness. If you want to ask someone for a small favor, which might be very useful to you but is just a minor effort for them, you shouldn't hesitate to ask. The essence of the experiment is that even if you give an unjustified reason, people will comply. So if you have a valid reason, it's even better. The emphasis is on how high people's willingness to cooperate is, rather than suggesting we should give unjustified reasons on purpose. For example, once I forgot my bus fare and saw a newsstand near the bus stop. I went up to the owner and asked if I could borrow 2 yuan for the bus fare. He immediately gave me the money without hesitation. 2 yuan is insignificant, but if I had directly asked for money without explanation, he would have been puzzled. The because heuristic is applicable within certain limits, specifically for small, trivial matters. There's a detail in the photocopier queue experiment that we didn't discuss earlier. If you only have 5 pages to photocopy, a fake because works well, and people will let you cut in line. But if you need to photocopy 20 pages, the likelihood of a fake because being rejected increases significantly, and you'll need a more legitimate reason. This principle reflects that most of the time, people are on autopilot, acting without much conscious thought, so they don't mind how things are arranged. But if there's a critical situation, they'll snap out of autopilot and seriously consider whether your reason is justified. When Adam says, "less is more," in a meeting and others agree, it's often because the proposal is relatively reasonable, and people don't mind too much, just needing any excuse to go along with it. The underlying point is that others are more easily swayed than we think. So if you really need to ask someone for a favor, don't be afraid to trouble them. There's a field called social engineering that studies how to exploit this vulnerability, which scammers often use. For us, it's best to see the because heuristic as a recommendation for gentlemen. Question 3. If a teenager can no longer be reasoned with, should we change our strategy? For example, should we give them the cold shoulder or use tougher methods? Response. If a child can no longer be reasoned with, it means they've been overwhelmed with reasoning. We should indeed explain things to children occasionally, like Adam suggests using the embrace and amplify method. However, remember that reasoning has diminishing returns. Overuse turns it into unwelcome nagging. We've discussed Alison Gopnik's The Gardener and the Carpenter and Robert M. Sapolsky's Behave, The Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst on our channel before. They highlight 2 key traits of teenagers that parents should note. Firstly, teenagers are easily attracted to new things. They always want to try new activities and meet new friends. They tend to overestimate the rewards of new experiences and underestimate the risks. As Gopnik puts it, if a child were a car, it would have a powerful engine but weak brakes. Many parents see their teenagers as troublemakers because of this. But I argue that this eagerness to explore is incredibly valuable. As a parent who might have lost interest in many things, don't you envy their youthful enthusiasm? Active exploration is crucial for a child's growth. We need to understand that this isn't about making mistakes but about trial and error. Some lessons can't be fully grasped by merely explaining them. Real understanding comes from personal experience. Making minor mistakes and facing small setbacks are not only normal but beneficial. They reinforce learning. Of course, responsible parents should ensure a minimum level of safety. For particularly dangerous activities, you should strongly advise and explain the risks. But in most cases, the activities aren't truly dangerous. It's just parents creating issues, out of a desire to control. Excessive parental intervention can stifle a child's motivation and autonomy. Especially if your family is well off, you should give your child more freedom because you can afford to correct their mistakes. Even if your resources are limited, you should still allow safe explorations. The second trait of teenagers is their sensitivity to others' opinions. Logically, others' views should be separate from who you are and your self-assessment, but for teenagers, others' opinions are paramount. They crave praise and respect. Therefore, the best way to interact with a teenager is through compliments. Praise them whenever you can, in front of others, and look for their strengths. Cold treatment and toughness are not the answers. Educating a child requires encouraging positive behavior and helping them excel. When you praise them often, they'll want to share their achievements with you, which is a joyful moment for any parent. Raising children should be about fostering energy and enthusiasm, not making them cautious and overly mature. Even with a plant, if it wilts and withers, shouldn't you feel responsible? Having a teenager at home is not a problem but a blessing. It gives you a second chance to learn about society. Many new technologies, popular cultures, and interesting things are often known to your child but not to you. You should learn from your child. Question 4. If the world is virtual, then what about us humans? Should we see ourselves as virtual game characters? If our universe is created by higher beings, why is it so vast? Isn't all the extra computing power wasted, or does the size of a universe serve a purpose? Response. The virtual world hypothesis is just a way for Adams to adjust his mindset by reframing his worldview. We don't need to believe it's true. As long as it's useful in your daily life, that's enough. However, the 3 questions you mentioned are actually quite easy to address within this worldview. We can imagine this world as a massive multiplayer online role-playing game. You are just one of the players, and everyone else is a real player too. I strongly advise against considering others as NPCs. That would lead to significant trouble. Everyone is real, but the world can be virtual. Of course, the computer only needs to load what you're looking at, and the same goes for your friends. Even with many people, this method saves a lot of computing power. The world is vast, and there are many places where no one is looking at any given moment, so those places don't need to be loaded. The middle of the Pacific Ocean, leaves in the forest. There's no need to render them, if no intelligent beings are observing. So why is the universe so big? There are 2 possibilities. One is that aliens exist, and this game's script is just that large. The other is that the universe isn't actually that big, possibly only the size of the solar system. Everything we see beyond the solar system could just be computer rendered. In fact, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 have been traveling for over 40 years and, by some definitions, still haven't completely left the solar system. Humanity has had no impact beyond the solar system. So far, only one object has been confirmed to enter the solar system from outside. The small, 400-meter-long object detected by NASA in 2017, called Oumuamua. It has since flown away. We only interact with the world beyond the solar system through telescopes, and those signals are the easiest to render. So, if you insist on being precise, I can only say that we cannot determine whether this world is simulated or not. It's an unfalsifiable theory. However, I have a strong reason for not believing in the simulation hypothesis. If the world were simulated, every phenomenon we observe would be the result of a computer's generation. The computer could choose to generate things one way or another, resulting in some randomness. When you run a game, you can make adjustments at any time, like adding a house today or removing the moon tomorrow. Those adjustments wouldn't need to follow physical laws. But every phenomenon we observe in our world so far conforms to the laws of physics. We haven't seen any signs of adjustments. Of course, you could argue that, if the adjustments were done well enough, our memories could also be adjusted so that we wouldn't notice. That's possible. But I still believe it's better to think that the world runs entirely on its own, without an adjuster. Only then do we have the motivation to explore the underlying rules of this world. You have to first believe that the world is logical to explore its logic. For me, believing that our exploration is meaningful provides a greater sense of inner peace.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.